Number 10. Peter Parker of Earth 92100. You'd think the addition of extra arms for a Spider-Man would be an added benefit. When it happened to Peter in the 616 universe, he panicked and got rid of it with the DNA of Morbius. Understandably. But on Earth 92100, Morbius did not live long enough to help Peter, being eaten by sharks of all things. And since no one else could, Peter kinda had to just deal with it. Turns out, during a fight with Doc Ock, after Peter embraced his extra appendages, they actually give him a distinct advantage. They actually grant him much more strength and agility, and using them, he is even able to save Gwen Stacy from her demise. Unfortunately, they don't really protect him from the Inheritors. Spider Limbs here sacrifices himself to save Spider-Man 2099 and Lady Spider in Spider-Man 2099 Volume 2 Number 6 in 2014. Number 9. Spider Assassin. Do you know how effective Spider-Man would actually be if he was a little less moral but still a crime fighter? Pretty effective. And while we've seen a few different examples of this, I chose to pull from What If? Spider-Man vs. Wolverine number 1, where we are introduced to Spider Assassin. In his universe, with great power comes great responsibility and greater enemies, which led this Peter of Earth 8351 to leave New York to protect his family. He joined up with Wolverine, and likely because of this friendship, he is much less opposed to sending criminals to the afterlife. He's also almost always serious, not resorting to quips and jokes to cope with situations anymore, which is reflective in his costume, which is a much darker look, especially with those black eyes. I really dig it. His web shooters have also been shown to shoot black webs in some panels, and they also include firearms. He is an effective addition to the Spider Army when it was formed, and an extremely effective Spider-Man indeed. Number 8. Spider's Man. Alright, yeah. Nope, not a fan of this one. You ever seen those videos of people finding spider nests where it's literally a swarm of spiders? Yeah, okay, imagine that, but they're super powered and come together to take on a human form. Now you've got the terrifying Spider's Man, which, side note, that's a great name. In Spider-Geddon number 3 of 2018, we are introduced to a colony of radioactively powered spiders who consumed a high school boy by the name of Peter Parker when he fell into their enclosure at Horizon Labs. After consuming Peter, the spiders gained a sort of hive mind in Peter's image and began fighting crime in Cruel York of Earth 11580. Other than his usual Spider-Man powers and the benefits of being a swarm of spiders, the colony is also able to poison its victims with a bite, or, if they're hungry for power, devour them whole. And it's incredibly hard to actually de-life this guy, as even a single spider being alive means technically Spider's Man is also still alive and can multiply to rebuild itself. Number 7. Spider UK. The first Spider-Man mashed with another Marvel hero. These mashups always make for powerful characters. Basically, Spider UK is William Braddock, hailing from Earth 833. If you haven't gathered from the Braddock namesake, Spider UK is what would happen if Spider-Man was Captain Britain. As such, he is part of the Captain Britain Corps, being introduced in the Edge of Spider-Verse Volume 1. He is also part of the Spider Army put together to take on the Inheritors, and a pretty important part of it, he was not only an amazing leader, but also had a very useful dimension hopping ability. Unfortunately, this Spider-Man didn't actually have a spider sense, which is probably what allowed him to be de-lifed by an attack from behind in Spider-Geddon number 1. Number 6. Spider-Man 2099. Probably one of the most loved characters on this list. The Spider-Man of Earth 928 Miguel O'Hara, or as he's better known, Spider-Man of the dystopian future of 2099. This version of Spider-Man has many similar abilities to 616 Peter Parker, but some that are not so similar. He has super speed, which is actually capable of somehow creating a decoy. His spider sense allows him to telepathically communicate with others. He has accelerated vision, he has retractable talons, and also has fangs that he can use to paralyze others. And he has the famously disgusting organic spider silk spinnerets on his wrists. He first appeared as a preview in Amazing Spider-Man number 365 in June of 1992, and in his own series in Spider-Man 2099 number 1 in September 1992, and he is a titanically awesome character. Number 5. The Spider of Earth 15. There are a lot of characters who go by the Spider. But specifically, I'm talking about the one that's bonded with the Carnage symbiote who comes from Earth 15. The Spider of Earth 15 is a much more sadistic, sociopathic, red-headed version of Peter Parker, which is proven by the fact that he has been sentenced to a total of 67 life sentences in prison for the crimes he has committed. To make him just a bit more lovable, he has a sense of humor very much like that of Deadpool. The Spider was introduced in Exiles number 12 and was a big part of the reality-conquering Weapons X team featured in it, being a sometimes leader of that team. As a Carnage-bonded sociopath, he was pretty powerful, but he was nonetheless sent to the afterlife by a blast from Firestar in Exiles number 44. Number 4. Poison. From one symbiote to another. Every time that pesky Venom symbiote would try to merge with Peter Parker, he would only get halfway before Peter could repel him. Now, what happens if Peter Parker is defeated by Venom, who completely bonds with him? In the What If Spider-Man the Other story, after Peter is defeated by Morlun and cocoons himself under Brooklyn Bridge, he is offered the chance to be resurrected by the Spider-God. But instead of allowing this, he refuses and is ejected from his cocoon non-resurrected. Cut to Venom, who, being Spider-Man's crazy ex-girlfriend, senses what is happening and completely ditches his current host. He intercepts Peter's body and after months of struggling, fully bonds to Peter. Now, Peter has all the fully realized powers that come with being a symbiote, but he actually has stingers that are capable of piercing the skin of Luke Cage, which is pretty insane. Number 3. Spider-Hulk. The second Spider amalgam here. Spider-Man of the Immortal Hulk with Great Power story is granted the alter ego of the Hulk after Loki magically transferred the Gamma power to him. So it's Spider-Man's relative spider powers mixed with an unstoppable green monstrosity with the temperament of a toddler. It's actually really cool. Eventually, the power of the Hulk is switched back to Banner with the help of the Fantastic Four and Banner's own genius. It's a short little story that seems almost self-contained, but it's an insanely cool one, and a Spider-Hulk would be an incredibly powerful character if he were to show up again and had more time to hone his abilities and temper tantrums. Number 2. Ghost Spider. The last Spider-Man mashed up with other heroes, but nonetheless possibly one of the most powerful potential mashups. Also, in my opinion, the coolest looking one. Also, it appears that Uncle Ben leaving this plane of existence is actually a really good thing. See, on Earth 11638, Ben never loses his life to a mugger, and he helps train Peter with his powers and helping him form Parker Industries. Peter and Uncle Ben end up building a machine that allows Peter to lure alternate versions of Spider-Man to this reality where he absorbs their powers to increase his own. That kind of took a dark turn, didn't it? But when he tried to do this to the apparently most powerful Spider-Man from Earth 616, he is de-lifed and his soul is sent to hell, where, with the assistance of the Infernal Hulk, he is fused with the spirit of vengeance, becoming the Ghost Spider. If you know anything about Ghost Rider, you know how actually insanely powerful he is, even going toe-to-toe with Galactus at one point. So yeah, this Spider-Man / Ghost Rider guy is potentially extremely powerful. Number 1. Cosmic Spider-Man. There was a point in time when Peter Parker of Earth 616 absorbed the Enigma Force and became the most powerful version of Spider-Man we have ever seen, even capable of punching the Hulk into orbit. In the mainline continuity, he doesn't have it for very long. But on Earth 13, he kept the powers and became the hero Captain Universe. So, this Peter Parker has all the usual Spider-Man powers, but also now has cosmic awareness where he can sense things on a subatomic level and from crazy distances. He has energy manipulation, giving him energy blast and flight. He also used his abilities to manipulate matter, making his webs as strong as adamantium, or even changing their shape altogether. His universe became a safe haven for all the Spider-Men when the Inheritors were hunting them, because Captain Universe could defeat them, and his cosmic powers are gone when he leaves that dimension. Unfortunately, he is consumed by Solus, who used the life force basis of his powers against him in Amazing Spider-Man number 11 in 2014. He's still cool though.
Number 10. Throg. Starting the list off light. He might be small, but he's still pretty mighty. Throg wasn't always a frog. In fact, at one point he was a human named Simon Walterson. He ended up getting help from a witch, but after being unable to pay her, found himself transformed into a frog. Don't you hate when that happens? He befriended Thor back when he was also transformed into a frog by his brother Loki. The two teamed up to help a frog king defend against an army of rats. Simon would go on to become his own version of Frog Thor after a piece of Mjolnir was broken off. This This tiny piece was wielded by Simon, who decided to become his own version of the hero while in his frog form. As a frog, he goes by the name Puddle Gulp as well. Puddle Gulp. So if you ever see Puddle Gulp or Simon, that's the Rog. Hey. Number 9. Thunderstrike. While Eric Masterson isn't more powerful than 616 Thor, he was still pretty powerful in regards to general power. He was considered worthy enough to wield Mjolnir and for a time was merged with Thor, in essence becoming that hero. However, he's probably better known for his time as Thunderstrike, when he wielded an Uru-crafted mace. He was fairly short-lived as a character, but whether he was Thor or Thunderstrike, he had powers similar to other Asgardians while in his transformed state. He was super strong, durable, tough, quick, and had a healing factor. In addition to that, with his Thunderstrike mace, he was also capable of teleportation, possibly on a multiversal level, which I think is pretty powerful. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you are loving our channel, be sure to show some love for us by heading on over to Facebook and giving us a follow over there. Number 8. War Thor. War Thor is the name that Volstagg took when he became Thor. This all went down during the time that Jane Foster was Thor and the usual 616 Thor was simply known by the name of Odinson. Volstagg became War Thor due to him seizing the Mjolnir of an alternate reality, which was unclaimed. This version of the hammer, however, seemed to have some kind of effect on his mind, as it made him, kind of violent and severe in comparison to how Thor would usually act, probably hence his name War Thor. After light elf refugees were attacked by fire demons from Muspelheim, he ended up going to Muspelheim itself, actively taking on the whole realm in battle and threatening to wipe out all life there with a massive flood. Jane Foster as Thor was forced to fight against War Thor and eventually managed to ascertain that he was Volstagg, using her friendship with him to calm him down. Number 7. MCU Thor. Thor in the MCU is pretty powerful, although he still seems to be on a journey towards becoming the most powerful he can ever be within this universe. Recently, he grew quite a bit when it came to his power levels, as he was forced to find a new way to harness his power when separated from Mjolnir, which was destroyed by his sister Hela. Hela destroys Mjolnir at the beginning of Thor Ragnarok, forcing Thor to channel the power within himself, and earning him the nickname of Sparkle Fingers from the Grandmaster. Since then, Thor lost an eye but managed to protect his people against Hela and the inevitable destruction of Asgard via Ragnarok, using this prophesied end to basically defeat his sister. So although Asgard is destroyed, it lives on in Asgardians. Yay! Thor was unfortunately no match for Thanos in space, although he did actually almost defeat Thanos in Infinity War single-handedly, although I guess in the end he didn't. However, he did go on to find a home for his people under the leadership of Valkyrie on Earth, creating sort of a new Asgard, if you will. We don't know where he's off to next, but it is possible we could see him take up the mantle of leader from Valkyrie, finally accepting his own fate as the next Allfather and inevitably taking Odin's place. That is after he goes on some adventures with the Guardians of the Galaxy, I'm sure. The Asgardians of the Galaxy? Number 6. Ultimate Thor. Ultimate Thor was an interesting version of the character. He hails from the reality of Earth 1610, and initially we were led to believe that this alternate wasn't actually even Thor, but instead was just a guy who kinda thought he was Thor and was possibly suffering from delusions, who was named Thorleif Gorman. He had a suit which helped him to fight against his enemies. Over time, it would be revealed that Thorleif Gorman was indeed the latest incarnation of Thor Odinson, as memories came flooding back to him. This version of Thor wasn't as reliant on Mjolnir as some other versions of Thor are, which makes him in some ways more powerful. Also, that suit. Number 5. Jane Foster. Simply known as Thor, and for a time known in terms of her series as Mighty Thor. While we know this version of the character was actually Jane Foster, at first in the comics it actually was a mystery as to who the woman behind the hammer was. Jane Foster became Thor after Thor Odinson was deemed unworthy, with the hammer actually calling out to her. This was also at a time that Jane was sick with cancer, so she had to be strong in many different ways. And it was exceedingly impressive that she decided to remain as Thor, considering the revelation that each time she transformed into the hero, her body was actually cleared of all toxins, including her chemotherapy treatments. Meaning that every time Jane became that hero, she in essence went back to square one with her treatment, making her sicker and sicker over time. Jane even chose to continue being Thor when her life was at stake, and she did end up dying, sacrificing herself to protect the world against Mangog. Fortunately, she would be resurrected by Odin afterward and become known as the hero Valkyrie, which is also a really big moment for Jane Foster, since Odin, up to that point, never really liked Jane. He was always giving her a hard time. Number 4. 4. Herald of Thunder. This version of Thor folks will be most familiar with, probably from the game Fortnite. But he's actually inspired by Donny Cates' current run on Thor, who exists in main continuity. So even if you're like, Herald of Thunder, that's a Fortnite thing. It's actually also a comics thing. Just like in the comics, Thor is convinced by Galactus to join up with him as a threat greater than Galactus is apparently on its way, known as the Black Winter. The Black Winter is literally a cosmic sort of, well, winter storm that in essence destroys everything it touches with its snowfall. So, like snow, but if it was like a whiteout for existence instead of just, small frozen bits of water. Much worse than snow. In the game Fortnite, Thor agrees to join Galactus in his fight against Black Winter and becomes his Herald of Thunder, becoming imbued with the power cosmic. Number 3. Rune King Thor. Rune King Thor, although often referred to as an alternate version of the character, is actually from the main continuity. He's more like a very distinct period in time in Thor's life, which ends up in essence getting somewhat reset. In other words, he's kind of main continuity, kind of alternate continuity. What makes him so powerful? Well, this is a version of Thor who comes to be because he's facing Ragnarok and looking for a way to stop it. He ends up gaining the power of the Odin Force and rune magic as well. He gains the Odin Force after Odin dies. Again, Odin has died a lot. Then there is a whole tangential reality that ends up being created where this Thor rules Earth, but I guess technically that's also like now an alternate future version of this version of Rune King Thor. So yeah. Oh boy. Anyways, this Rune King Thor would not be able to avoid Ragnarok in the end and would end up being reset as a result of all of the death that was part of that whole colossal event, along with the other gods and goddesses of Asgard. So that's why Thor isn't quite like Rune King Thor right now in the main continuity, despite this version being a part of the main continuity. Because yeah, he like lost both his eyes. So, lost both his eyes, and yet Thor, I think, is back to having both his eyes. He lost both his eyes, then he had his eyes, then he lost an eye. Does he have both of his eyes back now? I don't know. I can't keep track of how many eyes Thor has. Changes all the time. Number 2. All-Father Thor. While many people still say that Rune King Thor is one of the most powerful versions, and he definitely is, I think the real power lies in a potential alternate future version of Thor known as Old King Thor or All-Father Thor, or simply just as King Thor. Any of these names is acceptable and correct. So if you've heard someone say one and you're like, wait, which one is it? It's all, there's like literally 15 to 20 names actually this character goes by, so they're all right. This version of Thor was once believed to be the true future of Thor, but has since been relegated to kind of an alternate future, with him hailing from the possible future of Earth 14412. Although this Thor has alluded to the fact that if 616 Thor was to die, it would actually affect him, so not sure how connected they are still. In this reality, Thor would not only defeat Gore the God Butcher, Galactus, a souped up version of his brother Loki, a souped up version of Doctor Doom, and an even more powerful returning Gore the God Butcher, but he also at one point wielded the Phoenix Force. This all went down after All-Father Thor faced off against Old Man Phoenix, his friend Logan, who had become the host of that force. While Thor lost that fight, the two ended up teaming up together to save Earth from a version of Doom who was super power boosted by various artifacts and powers that he'd been collecting. In the end, Phoenix sacrificed himself to pass on the power of the Force to Thor so that he might stand a chance in defeating Doom, which he ultimately did. Number 1. Herald of None. Herald of None is technically the Thor we have in main continuity currently. This is a period in Thor's life where he basically took all of Galactus's power in order to defeat Black Winter, going from his herald to kind of like renouncing Galactus and ultimately defeating him so that he might destroy the Black Winter, which threatened the existence of everything in the multiverse and the multiverse itself. Doing this allowed Thor to be successful in taking out Black Winter, reducing it to a mere snowflake, one single snowflake. This snowflake also allowed Thor a glimpse into a potential future when it melted on his hand, where he saw Thanos had returned, leading perhaps an army of undead Marvel heroes who were under his influence as he wielded an Infinity Stone encrusted version of Mjolnir. I don't know if we know yet about this future, when it's coming to pass, but I love when comics are like, look at this future, this could happen. I'm like, oh, I'm so excited. Give it to me, give me this future.
Number 10. Lord Iron. I will never turn up the chance to talk about Marvel 1602, otherwise known as Earth 311. This Earth takes a bunch of the Marvel characters we love and plops them in the Elizabethan era. And yes, that includes Iron Man. Going by the name Anthony Stark and Lord Iron, his armor is powered by quote-unquote lightning bottles, and was created when Anthony was captured in the Holy Land during the English-Spanish Wars, and treated rather harshly by the Hulk, resulting in the requirement of the suit to survive. Anthony is sent on a mission to hunt down Banner in the New World with his technologically advanced suit. Now look, this suit in comparison to other versions of Iron Man, it's not the most advanced and powerful suit, but when looked at with the scope of the technology at the time, it's centuries ahead of its time, being nearly on par with base Iron Man armors, only it has a super sweet lightning sword. Like, damn bro, it's nice.
Number 9. Original Tony. Technically I'm talking about a version of 616 Tony here, but this isn't even really like the 616 Tony. Not the one we have now anyways, although at one point this was the 616 Tony. This version of Tony ended up getting amalgamated with his younger self to give us the version that we have now, because this version ended up fighting his younger self. Yep, it all happened as part of the Crossing event. Ah yes, the Crossing event, what a marvelous time. During that event it was revealed that Tony was actually a sleeper agent for Immortus, aka an alternate name and persona of Kang the Conqueror's. He is activated and ends up becoming somewhat unstoppable when it comes to the Avengers' power to defeat him, and Kang. Instead, they enlist the help of a younger Tony Stark from the past, who actually almost dies fighting against his older self. In the end, however, Tony has a change of heart, and he basically sacrifices himself to save his friends and the world from Kang. However, as I said, this version of him would later be resurrected and then amalgamated with the younger Tony, who remained in 616 in his place. Together, they would give us the Tony Stark that we know and love today in the comics.
Number 8. Exiles. Tony Stark, the undisputed monarch of Earth. What? Take a man with the intelligence, wealth, and power of Anthony Stark and make him unbothered by any kind of sense of morality. That's a man who can bring the world to its knees, but has the sense to not let them know it, and then be begged to take charge. Tony Stark of Earth 42777 acquired every world conglomerate. He organized a mutant war against humanity and then defeated their leader, Magneto, created a worldwide famine the likes of which was never seen before, and then invented the cures and vaccines to fix it, and then he got elected president. He developed weather controlling technologies to create biblical level natural disasters in Europe and Asia, having them beg for help to the point of giving up control. Central America and Canada had economic down spirals that brought them into the fold too, and he made a deal with Dr. Doom, who had attacked the Capitol and then taken out all the other democratic leaders in America, who he also destroyed after receiving a blast to the face that left him disfigured just like Emperor Palpatine. He's D-Life the Hulk. This version of Tony Stark is ruthless and powerful.
Number 7. Superior Iron Man. Superior Iron Man is actually a version of Tony from the main continuity, but he's so devious and fantastic that I had to include him. What can I say? I'm obviously a sucker for an evil villain version of Tony Stark, as this is the second one that I've mentioned on this list. I just feel like Tony has so much potential as an amazing villain, and honestly, I would rather see him as a villain than a hero. I know that might be a hot take, but there it is. And you might even say he's not just an amazing villain, he's a superior villain. Ho-ho! Superior Iron Man came about as a result of Iron Man avoiding the re-reversal of alignments back to normal near the end of Axis. You see, Scarlet Witch had cast a spell which accidentally inverted the alignment of a good number of Marvel's premium heroes and villains. Well, she meant to invert them, but not all of them. She meant to invert one of them, and then everyone else got affected too. Oops. Among them was Tony. When this was reversed, so Tony would go back from being evil to good once more, the super smart Iron Man found a way to shield himself, resisting the reversal back to being a hero. Instead, he remained a villain who simply passed himself off as a hero. This version of Tony isn't just smart, he's diabolical, and his lack of ethics means he's willing to do things that his regular, more heroic 616 self wouldn't.
Number 6. Ultimate Universe. Having your mind and body altered by an Infinity Gem sounds like it could go pretty much anywhere, but fittingly for Tony Stark, it led to him being able to physically and mentally interact with pretty much any computer ever. That's a pretty good ability for someone who flies around in a technological suit of armor. The Antonio Stark of Earth 1610, or the Ultimate Universe, has basically become part man, part machine, being able to project his mind into computers and androids, allowing him to be nigh unkillable, proven when the Master, Reed Richards, seemingly brought his demise, but he became a non-physical entity which could manifest itself via computer systems. When actually physically inhabiting an Iron Man armor, he gains the usual abilities, plus force fields and cloaking. He's also got nanites in his bloodstream that he uses to control his suits, as well as open locks, defuse boom booms, and interact with all forms of tech. This Ultimate Universe Iron Man, like quite a few of the other Ultimate Universe characters, is pretty ultimate.
Number 5. Darkhold Iron Man. As we glimpse into the Darkhold, we get to see into the much darker reality of Earth 21129 when it comes to Tony Stark's tale. Here in Darkhold Iron Man, issue number 1, we meet Tony Stark, who becomes obsessed with the armor that he's building, despite the fact that once in said pieces of armor, they cannot be removed, as they bond to Tony in such a way that removing the armor also removes his skin. In essence, we learn that the armor is kinda like feeding on Tony Stark's organic makeup, fully bonding with him. When he wears the helmet, this becomes evident when we learn that skin and bone are melting away, as the suit has, well, no need of them, because they're like, hey, we're armor, so you don't need that. This Tony Stark is eerily powerful as he threatens to take over the world with his technology, offering everyone the infinite and permanent safety of his suits, at the cost of their own organic lives and bodies.
Number 4. Iron Goblin. Earth 19919, or the Spider Island, basically saw the city of New York taken over by the Spider Queen, who infected millions of people, including heroes, turning them into monstrous spider people. Agent Venom of the Resistance began using other monster transforming techniques. This includes injecting the Hulk with the Lizard Serum, using the Godstone to turn Captain America into a werewolf, and Captain Marvel was turned into a living vampire. For Iron Man, he was sprayed with the Goblin formula used by Norman Osborn to save him. This gave Tony Stark super strength, speed, stamina, durability, agility, reflexes, and a regenerative healing factor. You know, the superhero starter pack of abilities, plus all the technology of the Iron Man suit. Unfortunately, the serum also has the side effect of making people maniacal, paranoid, irrational, and illogical. Not wanting to go fully insane and to make up for his crimes as an arms dealer, the Goblin Iron Man wielded the Ebony Blade, one of the most powerful weapons in the Marvel Universe, and sacrificed himself to save the Resistance.
Number 3. Iron Hammer. Iron Hammer is an amalgamation of Iron Man and Thor from the Pocket Dimension universe known as Warp World. Warp World was created when Gamora gained the power of the Infinity Stones and used them to fold the universe in half, merging souls together in doing so to create amalgamated heroes and villains, then feeding those souls to the Soul Gem. Iron Hammer is Stark Odinson, the son of Howard Odin, who is part businessman, part Asgardian god. Iron Hammer wields a hammer and also wears a spiffy set of armor, having the powers of both the 616 versions of both of these heroes.
Number 2. Iron Lantern. Ah, yes, the Amalgam Universe, combining the world's two biggest comic book companies, DC and Marvel, pitting popular characters from both sides against each other and even fusing some characters together. One incredibly cool amalgamation would be between Iron Man and Green Lantern. Harold Stark, HAL for short, was the founder of Stark Aircraft, and while test flying a prototype aircraft, it suddenly took off on its own to a crashed alien spaceship, and it too crashed. The crash left shards of metal in Stark's chest, which, after meeting the dying alien Romancer, Stark survived using an alien battery, suspiciously in the shape of a lantern, to build a suit of armor. This armor not only kept him alive though, it gave him the ability to create green solid energy constructs, fire plasma bolts, fly at speeds beyond the speed of light, time travel, it granted him almost unlimited telepathic powers, translation of virtually any language, force field generation, and the ever classic superhuman strength and durability. Yeah, he'll put his hand on your chest.
Number 1. Infamous Iron Man. Who is Infamous Iron Man? Well, he's Doctor Doom as Iron Man. I know this might seem like a controversial pick for our top spot, but walk with me, or I guess just stand with me, because I can't really walk anywhere. Doctor Doom, despite being a villain, is one of the most powerful characters in the Marvel Universe. He's not only a genius, but is the ruler of a nation known as Latveria, wielding all the power of his country, his people, and the nation's resources, as well as being an extremely gifted magic user. In fact, there are even futures where Doom becomes Sorcerer Supreme, and if it weren't for Clea showing up in the 616 universe, he would have become Sorcerer Supreme after Doctor Strange died. Also, a lot of what stops Doctor Doom from winning the day is his role as a heel for the heroes, a villain. So when he decided to take up the mantle of Iron Man in Tony's absence, he became pretty much unstoppable, because now there's no reason for him to technically have to lose battles. He's not a bad guy. Well, he's kind of a bad guy, but he's a good bad guy. Villains even banded together in fear of what action Doom might take against them as Iron Man. And when they did band together, he still showed up and then beat them all. So yeah. Number 10. Azuri. King Azuri is T'Challa's grandfather. He is the father of T'Chaka, who ruled Wakanda during World War II. Before T'Chaka was Black Panther, Azuri was. He was rumored to be a brutal man who basically beheaded anyone who trespassed into Wakanda and possibly hunted outsiders for sport, displaying their heads on spikes. In reality, although he was pretty harsh and had no qualms with killing and beheading those who refused to leave at his behest, he was not completely unreasonable and would only seemingly attack those who actually refused to leave Wakanda. So he wouldn't just straight up kill people usually, he'd just be like, hey, could you like get out? If they didn't get out, he's like, well, okay, guess I'm gonna behead you, I guess. When Captain America came to Wakanda, Azuri asked him to leave, and when he refused, they fought. However, it was through this meeting that Azuri would gain some tolerance and respect for outsiders in his land, believing that Captain America could actually be a really good symbol for the US, like Black Panther was for Wakanda. Azuri has powers similar to the Black Panthers who had come before and after him, but was well known for his ruthless nature, having no problems with killing his opponents when he needed to. Number 9. Ultimate Black Panther. In this reality, T'Challa was the younger brother of M'Baku, who was meant to become Black Panther and King instead. Jealous and overconfident, T'Challa decided to take part in the Panther ritual ahead of his time, before M'Baku did. The dangerous trial involved hunting and defeating a Black Panther, and as a result of attempting it, T'Challa was maimed with his throat actually ripped out. The king was worried about losing his son and was forced to reach out to the US for help. They were able to save T'Challa, but Nick Fury also forcibly recruited him into S.H.I.E.L.D., refusing to release him back to Wakanda and his father. And although this sounds really harsh, apparently Fury did believe that it was because, you know, T'Chaka maybe was behind the fact that his son got so injured. Initially, T'Challa was not super gifted when it came to combat, but after training with Captain America, he proved to actually be a really great fighter. This version of T'Challa does not speak, as his vocal cords were severely damaged in the Panther attack. Or completely gone. Actually, I think they're completely gone. I feel like if your throat's ripped out, vocal cords probably don't exist. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more lists like it, be sure to show your love for Black Panther in the comments below. Number 8. Killmonger. For a short while in the comics, Killmonger took up the mantle of Black Panther. He did so after defeating T'Challa in ritual combat. Pretty impressive considering that T'Challa would still have been Black Panther at this point, and unlike the film version of this fight, didn't actually have to depower himself in order to fight Killmonger in issue 20 of the 1998 Black Panther series, considered volume 3 overall. Although they do have to fight for a long while, even needing to both take breaks, which seems to have a toll on Black Panther's normally heightened senses, and is probably why he lost this fight. Killmonger may have not had the heart-shaped herb, which he did not ingest before adopting the mantle, but he is known for being a brilliant mind in the comics, super strong, and basically a genius inventor. He made plays to try and maintain his power, even trying to get in with the Avengers as T'Challa had previously done, but eventually did himself in by trying to ingest the heart-shaped herb. Due to the fact that in the comics N'Jadaka is not related to T'Challa by blood, the herb poisoned him as he didn't have royal blood in his veins, and he actually ended up in a coma as a result. It didn't work out well in the end, but he was still able to be a Black Panther, which I think is pretty nuts. Number 7. Shuri. Shuri is actually Black Panther's sister, and I gotta say, I love her as Black Panther. Shuri actually always wanted to be Black Panther ever since she was a young girl. At one point, her brother T'Challa agrees to train Shuri to help her prepare for becoming Black Panther should that day ever come. And come it did, so I guess it's good they did that training. Black Panther at one point becomes the king of the underworld, ruling alongside Bast, and in his place, Shuri is crowned queen, and also takes up the mantle of Black Panther. Like her brother, Shuri is exceptionally smart, strong, and is also a skilled fighter. Number 6. Coal Tiger. T'Chaka II is the son of T'Challa from the MC2 alternate Earth/future. T'Chaka is named after his grandfather, T'Challa's father, which is also why he's the second of that name. T'Chaka can transform into a panther-like human hybrid and goes by the name of Cole Tiger in this universe. In his animal-like form, he is considered even more powerful in terms of his strength, speed, agility, and senses. We don't know who his mother is in this universe, I don't think, but MC2 is a universe filled with heroes' kids who grow up and basically become supers in their own right, such as Spider-Woman aka May Parker, who also hails from MC2 or Earth 982 and is the daughter of Spider-Man and Mary Jane Watson Parker. And it's also pretty much the reason why we have that universe, which is a cool one, so yay. Number 5. Earth X Black Panther. On Earth X, Black Panther is the one who guards the Cosmic Cube, being noble and powerful enough to be entrusted with such a valuable item of power. Captain America gave him the Cosmic Cube to guard, believing that T'Challa would protect it, even from Captain America himself, if he had to. On Earth 9997, T'Challa would also end up married to Storm, aka Aurora Monroe. And when the Terrigen Mists caused the world to mutate, he would become more panther-like in appearance. Likewise, the animals in Wakanda would also mutate and they would actually become more humanoid in appearance. T'Challa from then on referred to them as the Annie-Men, and also believed them to be kind of a manifestation or a symbol of Wakandan gods as well. Black Panther on Earth X, thanks to his further mutation, is actually believed to be even more powerful possibly than his main continuity counterpart. Number 4. MCU Black Panther. In the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Black Panther was played by Chadwick Boseman up until his untimely death in 2020. While the future of the character remains uncertain in the MCU, what we do know is that with Boseman in the role, T'Challa as Black Panther in the MCU proved to be one of the greatest heroes out there. We saw both his capacity to be an inspirational hero who also listened to those around him, with Nakia helping him to see the benefits of revealing Wakanda's true wealth and power to the world so they could actually help others the world over with their knowledge and their technology. Black Panther also proved himself as a hero, defeating M'Baku when challenged for the throne, and later Killmonger his cousin, with T'Challa trying his hardest to convince Eric to surrender, not wanting to have to hurt a member of his own family, who T'Challa even felt in the end had pretty much been abandoned by his people. He really actually didn't want to fight Eric. He was like, I mean, I guess if we gotta do this, guess we gotta fight. Aside from that, along with the Avengers, Black Panther fought against Thanos twice and in the end won, saving the Earth from his tyrannical tirades. Number 3. Ghost Panther. Ghost Panther is a version of the hero who also boasted of the powers of Ghost Rider. He hails from the Infinity Warp reality, which was created when Gamora folded the universe in half using the Infinity Stones. This caused souls in that reality to merge together, creating amalgamated heroes and villains, which also included Ghost Panther. Ghost Panther is T'Challa, who also at one point used the stage name of Johnny Blaze as a stunt motorcycle rider. He has the combined powers of Ghost Rider and Black Panther. Instead of riding a flaming motorcycle though, while in his ghostly form, he rides a flaming giant Black Panther, which is pretty cool. Number 2. 1 million BC. This Black Panther is actually believed to be the first to have ever existed. He belonged to the Panther tribe and was the one to discover the valuable vibranium meteor, which would later grant the nation of Wakanda their strength via technology. This Black Panther belonged to what is believed to be the first ever Avengers team, the Stone Age Avengers, or the 1 million BC Avengers as they are sometimes known. Other than Odin, this Black Panther was the first person to wield Mjolnir, being declared worthy by the hammer and therefore able to do so, which is also pretty crazy. Number 1. Star-Lord. In the Disney Plus animated series What If, we got our own alternate version of Black Panther featured as a main character, also featuring Chadwick Boseman's final MCU performance in the episode where he voiced T'Challa for the last time. Here T'Challa has a different fate. Instead of remaining in Wakanda and eventually becoming king and Black Panther, he is abducted by the Ravagers, with Yondu believing he is the son of Ego that he was sent to Terra aka Earth to retrieve. It turns out that Yondu was kind of wrong about that, but aside from that, Yondu also becomes quite attached to this kid. T'Challa joins the Ravagers, excited to explore the cosmos with them, and ends up becoming Star-Lord, a character who is insanely powerful and who basically defeated Thanos with like a simple conversation, convincing him that what he was doing was pretty much wrong. So no snap in this universe. Instead, Thanos ends up actually as Star-Lord's ally, crewmate, and friend, which is also pretty cool.
Number 10. Ultimate Hulk. Just like every villain who is warned not to experiment on himself, the Ultimate Universe Bruce Banner, who thought he perfected the super soldier serum, used it on himself, which had a pretty unfortunate effect. Instead of becoming big and strong like Captain America, he became big and strong like Bull, or like Hulk, I guess, and tore apart the lab he was working in. So already this is a different kind of Hulk. You know, no gamma explosion caused this monstrosity. When he mixed Captain America's serum with his Hulk serum and injected himself though, he became a gray monstrous Hulk and became a bit more villainous. Not necessarily on purpose, but I mean, he ate people, said some pretty not okay things, and rampaged around New York giving the newly formed Ultimates a threat to fight. He did eventually become a bit more of an on-again, off-again hero, even though he allied himself with the Maker at one point. But I mean, at least he wasn't actually as powerful as the original 616 Hulk, which makes him a bit better to deal with. Number 9. Aborigine Hulk. Ever heard of the House of M? When Wanda Maximoff changed reality to make the mutant Magneto the ruler of the world with his family? Well, in this world, when Bruce Banner transformed into the Hulk after the Gamma explosion, it is believed by Mr. Ross that he is a spy of Magneto, and he is hunted down like normal. But not like normal, he travels all the way to Australia, and he settles in with a group of Aboriginals where he becomes a part of their tribe, and finds an inner peace with Banner and the other guy. But of course, the conflict between the mutants and the last remaining resisting humans finds its way to the outback and onto the territory of his Aborigine tribe. With a kind of control over the Hulk persona, Hulk and Banner help the humans halt their persecution by their mutant overlords, eventually helping AIM to rule Australia. There's this really cool moment where Hulk is like using a whale to cover a submarine. It looks amazing, I promise. Just check it out. Number 8. Hulk: The End. After what seems to be a nuclear apocalypse has wiped out every other form of human life on the planet Earth, of course, it is the Hulk who is the only one remaining. Kind of fitting, as he has always wanted to be left alone, and now he is alone. Except not fully. Now that every human has left, Hulk is left with one person who won't leave him be, Dr. Bruce Banner. Banner is always there, just kind of on the subconscious background. This version of the Hulk contends against massive mutated cockroaches who eat him, but he always heals and remains alive. It's rather strange how this happens, but at some point in time, Bruce Banner actually passes on inside of the transformed Hulk from a heart attack, and finally lives the Incredible Hulk utterly and totally alone in the world. It's honestly a really depressing story, and it ends just as depressingly, but it is nonetheless an amazing story, and I think if you've never checked it out, you probably should. Number 7. Hulk 2099. Spider-Man 2099 is an incredible character and story. The world that Marvel set up in 2099 is just as awesome and brilliant, which led to a bunch of heroes getting 2099 counterparts. Obviously, the Hulk had to be one of them. In 2099, you'll find a cult called the Knights of Banner, who are trying their darndest to create a Hulk. Oh, and to get a movie deal, but mainly to get a Hulk. Or a Hulk-like thing. A man named John Eisenhart joins up with the cult, and after an upset cult member triggers a gamma explosion, Eisenhart is transformed into a new version of the Hulk. Now this alternate Hulk is just a smidge different from our regular Hulk. Like, I don't know, his super strong prehensile tongue. That's a big one. His crazy long hair could be considered another. He had sharp teeth and very strong claws, and he also isn't a savage Hulk, so his strength is not limitless. But yeah, I'd still run from this monstrosity. Number 6. The Lizard Hulk. In Spider Island, New York has been captured and taken over by an evil Spider Queen, who not only rules the citizens, but has also turned most of them into mindless spider people. She has even turned a large number of heroes into scary looking spider mutates. Hulk is one of those heroes. Now, while this version of Hulk could honestly make this list, there is a point in the story where Flash Thompson, otherwise known as Agent Venom, who leads a resistance against the Spider Queen and is trying to cure the spider virus, infects Hulk with the blood of Dr. Kurt Connor, or as he is otherwise known, the Lizard. This actually works, and instead of being an arachnid type Hulk, the strongest Avenger becomes a lizard type Hulk. I don't know. He fights alongside a werewolf Steve Rogers, a vampire Carol Danvers, and a green goblin Tony Stark. It's pretty cool. And he himself is pretty impressive. I mean, just look at the power set he now possesses. All his gamma mutated physiological abilities, his limitless strength, and all that loveliness, plus the abilities of the Lizard from 616, including that sweet tail. Number 5. Venom Hulk. Now, this has happened in the 616 continuity. In Absolute Carnage, Venom abandons Eddie Brock to bond with a more powerful character to take on the null-boosted Carnage, the Hulk. It looks amazing, with Venom barely even being able to fully cover the Hulk's massive body. But while you may think this combo would be a game changer for the heroes, it is ultimately really disappointing, as Bruce is dealing with his Devil Hulk persona and Carnage targets this. Hulk reverts back to Banner and then gets his spine ripped out, way too fast. Luckily, we get a slightly less awesome looking version of Venom Hulk. In What If number 4 on Earth 1089, we see a Venom symbiote fully bond with Spider-Man in their first encounter. He feeds off him until he encounters the Hulk. Now, if I was a symbiote and I had the choice between Peter Parker and the Incredible Hulk, I'd probably ditch Peter Parker just like Venom did here. He easily takes over the simpler mind of the Hulk. Venom feeds off the gamma radiation of the Hulk, eventually moving on to Thor, but the potential of this kind of amalgamation is just, I don't know. I think I gotta change my underwear now. Yeah. Number 4, Infernal Hulk. I think superheroes need to stop banishing Hulks. It doesn't do anything but make them more mad. And in this case, you turn them into a demon. In the universe of Earth 11638, Bruce Banner has become the Sorcerer Supreme after being Doctor Strange's apprentice. And to sidetrack for a moment, could you imagine Bruce Banner running around like Mickey Mouse in the Sorcerer's Apprentice? You can't tell me that wouldn't be entertaining. Anyways, using the magic he learned, he managed to separate the Hulk persona from himself and send it to hell. For Supreme Sorcerer, you think he would have a bit more forethought. Sending the Hulk to hell managed to get him corrupted by demons, turning him into the Infernal Hulk and giving him some pretty powerful demonic abilities. Now, after some time, Earth 11638 is visited by the Earth 616 Bruce Banner alongside Deadpool and Spider-Man. The Infernal Hulk clawed his way back into the mortal plane by trading places with the Hulk persona of Earth 616 Bruce Banner. Spider-Man, Deadpool, and Sorcerer Bruce Banner come up with a plan by reversing the spell that banished the Hulk persona and sacrificing Magic Bruce so the Infernal Hulk had nowhere to go, effectively ending the whole thing, and it was all thumbs up after that. I don't know. Number 3, Maestro. I feel like we have talked about him way too many times to count, but for those of you who don't know, Maestro is the dystopian future version of Hulk, the variant of Hulk that haunts his own dreams. He rules over the creatively named city of Dystopia as an incredibly evil and immoral dictator. Years and years of radiation due to the nuclear conflict that spawned this dystopian future had made Maestro sick and villainous, as well as twice as strong as the base level Hulk, but with all the intelligence of Banner to boot. This bearded green behemoth has been a fan favorite character since his introduction in the Future Imperfect storyline, and his backstory, fighting the Human Torch, Doctor Doom, Namor the Submariner, and Abomination, is pretty intense and a fun read. Not to mention his debut where he fights the Incredible Hulk and defeats him like it's absolutely nothing to him. Such a great character. I think he needs to show up in the MCU, like sooner or later, please. Just once. Just one time. Just one time. Number 2, Immortal Hulk. Who knew that all those times Bruce Banner should have lost his life and was saved by the Hulk, he actually did, and was revived. Apparently, all these revivals actually made Hulk more and more powerful, resulting in the Immortal Hulk, which is one of the most powerful versions of the Hulk we have ever seen. He's articulate, he seems to be more intelligent than Banner, and his strength is nearly unrivaled. He can literally smell when someone is lying, which is just kind of insane by itself. But I think the strangest thing is that he will only come out at night, kind of like how the original Hulk did. But now, the Hulk won't even come out to actually save Banner's life anymore. Like when Bruce caught a bullet to the head and was actually lifeless on the ground until nighttime came and the Immortal Hulk came out. The Immortal Hulk storyline is also incredible, and you should absolutely check it out. But just to warn you, while the art is really good, it can be really graphic and kind of freaky at times, so you've been warned. Number 1, Breaker of Worlds. I said the Immortal Hulk was the most powerful Hulk we have been shown, but there is an alternate one shown in the same Immortal Hulk storyline that kind of tops everything else. Like ever. In Immortal Hulk, we meet the One Below All, the representative of all destruction and death in the Marvel Marvel Universe, and the antithesis to the one above all who is basically God. He is an incredibly powerful being who is thankfully trapped in the below place, and exists through gamma mutated characters like the Hulk and Abomination and all those guys. But not on Earth TRN 781. In this reality, the one below all managed to destroy the soul of Bruce Banner and take his place inside the Hulk's body, possessing the Hulk. This possessed Hulk goes on a mission of destruction, removing crazy powerful characters like Franklin Richards and Galactus, and consuming them to gain their power, becoming more and more powerful, until he found the sentience of the 8th cosmos, and did the exact same thing to him too. Fast forward about 10 billion years, and the Breaker of Worlds had destroyed all life and all planets in the multiverse. But now we move on to the 9th cosmos, I think that's how that works. I really don't know. All I know, or even understand, is that this version of the Hulk is massive, bigger than the biggest planets, which he destroys with his giant emerald fists. He is empty and hollow and utterly terrifying. A godlike being who transcends understanding. He's sweet. You should check him out. Number 10. Yeoman America. Back in Avengers Volume 3 Number 2 in January of 1998, Morgan Le Fay's reality distortion wave caused the time period to be altered to a medieval setting, which altered the Avengers' clothing, speech patterns, and thought processes. For Steven Rogers, he became Yeoman America, a knight-like soldier with red, blue, and white stars and stripes armor, and weapons including a sword and a more fantasy-like shield. Now, to be clear, this is just regular 616 Captain America, but magically time displaced. So he's got all of his same abilities, but something about wearing a suit of armor and wielding a sword like that makes him just kind of better than himself? In my opinion, I don't know. Number 9. Hydra Cap. While this version of Captain America did appear largely in the 616 reality, he's actually technically from an alternate timeline created by a Hydra brainwashed Cubic who used her reality warping powers to make Captain America his ideal self. But since she was being influenced by Hydra, his ideal self was a Captain America who grew up being made loyal to Hydra. This Cap would eventually supplant the real Captain America of 616 and would organize the second superhuman civil war, as well as Chitauri invasions on the Earth. He got promoted to director of S.H.I.E.L.D. and influenced the legalization of the S.H.I.E.L.D. Act, which gave S.H.I.E.L.D. way more authority. He used this new power to basically organize a Hydra takeover of America, with Steve becoming the Hydra Supreme and bringing on the Secret Empire event. He was defeated by the proper version of Captain America, brought back by Cubic, but this Steve manipulated his way into an extremely high position of power, banishing mutants, imprisoning Inhumans, creating a Hydra Avengers team, and forcing other heroes into the underground. Number 8. Peggy Carter. If you've seen the Marvel Studios What If show, you know alternate versions of Peggy Carter get the super soldier serum in place of Steven Rogers. Fans love this idea, even if it's strange for a British agent to become Captain America. There are a few different versions of Captain Carter to choose from, but they all generally share the same abilities. There was a version of the character who appeared in Exiles number 3 in 2018 who had a great costume. The one in the Disney Plus show joined the Guardians of the Multiverse, so she was clearly an exceptional version of the character. She's also shown up in a new Marvel Cinematic Universe movie sporting a jetpack, and was able to give the villain of that movie a real good run for their money, while other more powerful characters were like felled instantly. She can be a bit more hot-headed than her Steve Rogers counterpart, sure, but she has the power of fan love. And if you know anything about what that power can do, you know that Peggy Carter as Captain America is very powerful. Number 7. MCU Captain America. I find it hard to be able to put most of the MCU iterations of characters into a list of most powerful versions of themselves. The MCU tends to depower a lot of their characters, which I suppose is understandable from like a storytelling perspective. But when this version of Cap wields Mjolnir and smacks around Thanos for a little while, nearly beating him all on his own, a feat the Hulk could not even achieve, and then fights the army Thanos brought with him, all with minimal training wielding the power of Thor, it's honestly a sight to behold. I almost wish they showed us Cap going through time, fixing all the branched timelines the Avengers had created. It would have been so cool seeing the ways he could use the hammer. Like, imagine Captain America flying through the air with his shield in one hand and being dragged by Mjolnir in the other. It would just be really cool. Number 6. Danielle Cage. On Earth 15061, Danielle Cage, the daughter of both Luke Cage and Jessica Jones, would eventually become the Captain America of her time,
And, well, let's just think about this for a second. The subsonic flight and superhuman longevity of her mother with the bulletproof skin of her father, plus the superhuman strength, durability, stamina, speed, and healing factor of both of them? Yes, Danielle Cage doesn't just use the shield of Captain America. She is the shield. She arguably does not even need her shield, which is a controllable drone replica of the original. Unfortunately, we don't get to see much of this version of Danielle Cage, but we know Danielle is a force to be reckoned with, and as such, she is a Captain America who deserves to be on this list. Number 5. Earth X. If you haven't read Earth X, well, do it. But the basic premise is that in this alternate reality, the people of the Earth all begin to gain mutant abilities. And in the words of Syndrome from The Incredibles, and when everyone's super, no one will be. Captain America specifically was a bit more tragic in this story. For starters, he felt unworthy as he had actually separated the Red Skull from his head using his shield in an act of vengeance, causing him to step down from the Avengers out of shame. But this likely led to all the Avengers except Vision being defeated by Absorbing Man. So this Cap was a faded version of what he could have been, but he still had all the same powers and abilities and still fought against what was wrong and stood for what was right. But it's when he passed on that he actually became more powerful. Cap turned into one of Marvel's avenging hosts, which were basically angels in the realm of the dead. His wings enabled him to fly. He could change his shape, but usually looked like himself. He was able to travel between the dimensions of the land of the dead to paradise, and from paradise to the antimatter sun of the negative zone. On top of that, Cap could also awaken the latent memories of those in the realm of the dead with a single touch. He also wielded an extremely cool sword, but we don't know what its capabilities really are because he never used it. He is a much different Captain America with an extremely unique set of powers and abilities, but he's also one of the coolest. Number 4. Kiyoshi Morales. When a group of 5 Captain Americas from different realities are brought together, we're gonna look at 2 who have not been seen before. But the one I want to talk about here is Kiyoshi Morales, the great grandnephew of Luke Cage, and he is the 25th century's Commander A. Kiyoshi is a much more physically imposing character, standing at what looks like almost 7 feet tall, and he was definitely the biggest among the Captain Americas gathered by Toth Key in Captain America Corps number 1 from 2011. Instead of a vibranium shield, Kiyoshi's suit can generate energy shields on each arm, which resemble the normal Captain America vibranium shield. His suit is much more advanced as well, as you'd expect from the 25th century Captain America stand-in. For example, it features a neuro web, which allows him to tap into the wireless systems and stored information of the world. He had all the enhancements we'd expect, and he is just a super cool character who I really hope we get to see in the future. But for now, he is definitely my favorite of the members of the Captain America Corps. Number 3. Ultimate Universe. In the Ultimate Universe, it seems that Captain America's treatment with the Super Soldier Serum actually seemed to give him a bit more of an edge in terms of his powers. For example, while this universe's Hulk is a bit weaker than the 616 version, he is still incredibly strong. But this Captain America was able to go toe-to-toe for a few rounds against the Hulk, almost actually defeating him and eventually knocking him out, which is like 616 Cap could never do that. Ultimate Cap also seemed pretty capable of handling armies of guys all on his own. He was an extremely capable leader while also being a bit more than a little ruthless compared to his 616 counterpart. Like when he was fighting against the Chitauri Herr Kleiser, his rival. He resorted to traumatizing Bruce Banner to get him to turn into the Hulk and then convincing him that Kleiser was getting it on with Betty Ross so that Hulk would pummel Kleiser into the concrete and then eat him. That kind of wholesome stuff. Nice. Number 2. Soldier Supreme. A cap-wielding Mjolnir? Cool. But how about a Cap with the mystical and magical powers of the Sorcerer Supreme? Well, we get that in Infinity Warps, when Gamora, wielding the Infinity Gauntlet, basically folds reality in half, merging characters with other characters. One of the two merged together, in case you didn't catch on, is Captain America Steve Rogers and the Sorcerer Supreme, Dr. Stephen Strange. The result would be Stephen, with a PH, Rogers, the Soldier Supreme. He fought in World War II against the German hell priest Dormammu Red, and would use his super enhancements and military training alongside his mystical and magical abilities. During World War II, he teamed up with his Howling Commandos of Hoggoth, including Dum Dum Fury and Bucky Wong. Later, in the modern era, after returning from banishment in the Negative Zone, he would team up with Iron Hammer, Arachnite, and Weapon Hex to battle against Devondra. Number 1. Super Soldier. Seems like when you take one character and smush them together with another character, you get a pretty OP new character. Like Soldier Supreme, or Cap-wielding Mjolnir, or even Danielle Cage to a degree. But what if you took Captain America and you fused him together with one of the strongest characters in all of comic books? Well, in the Amalgam universe, where Marvel characters are mixed in with DC Comics characters, we got Super Soldier. And if you haven't guessed by now, this is Captain America mixed together with Superman. When Clark Kent volunteered for the Super Soldier program, he was injected with a Super Soldier serum containing cellular kryptonite samples from an alien, while also being doused in solar radiation. The result was a power set unheard of for any other Captain America. Super strength over 1 million tons. Invulnerability to everything but Green K, as it's called. Superhuman stamina to the point of being completely tireless. He can fly at speeds of around Mach 10. He has superhuman speed at speeds of about 2,000 miles per second. He can hear and smell anything on Earth. He has a sonic scream that allows Clark to destroy someone's literal essence. No need to eat or sleep. He can heal instantly from most any injury due to his altered metabolism. Clark can create hurricane-level winds by blowing and can also chill his breath to project ice from his mouth. And he has extremely hot heat vision. I think that pretty much covers it, and I don't really need to say more. But you take all that and put it in the mind of an expert tactician and soldier, it's game over for you, buddy. Coming in at number 10, we got the Scarlet Witch from the Onslaught Reborn universe, which is a copy of Counter-Earth from Heroes Reborn. She has all the same powers of Earth 616 Wanda and is one of the most powerful magicians in the Marvel universe, able to conjure and counter spells. This version of Wanda also possessed something called Witch Sight. Witch Sight is the sight, which is basically a magical kind of vision that allows Wanda to be able to see things others cannot, and also perceive invisible and intangible people or objects. In this dimension, the Scarlet Witch is a member of the evil team known as the Masters of Evil. But under unspecified circumstances, Wanda left the Masters of Evil and became an Avengers member. This Scarlet Witch is practically the same as the 616 one though, and doesn't do anything particularly crazy, so number 10 she goes. Number 9. Gypsy Witch. All of the members of the Avengers were affected when Morgan Le Fay released her reality distortion wave. The distortion wave altered the time period for everyone into one that was honestly a pretty cool medieval setting. All the Avengers' clothes, thought processes, and speech patterns changed to fit into this setting. Scarlet Witch was one of the only ones though who retained her memories, as her powers countered those of Morgan Le Fay. She was kept imprisoned, but despite that fact, she was still able to use her power to reach out and unlock the memories of a few of the Avengers that had now become the Queen's elite guardsmen. She also pumped power into Wonder Man, and with the other Avengers' willpower, shifted reality back to the way it should be, and simultaneously defeated Morgan Le Fay. Number 8. Brother Mutant. Unlike almost any other versions of Scarlet Witch, Scarlet Warlock was a male version of the crazy powerful character from Earth 127, appearing in Exiles issue 85 from 2006. But if he wasn't already powerful enough with those powers, he was combined with this world's versions of Wolverine, Magneto, Quicksilver, and Mesmero to become Brother Mutant when he attempted to imbue Magneto with Wolverine's adamantium skeleton. Brother Mutant became a single entity with all their combined powers, and he swore to end the life of every non-mutant on Earth. Multiple teams of alternate versions of Wolverines were sent here to try and correct the mistake that was this being ever existing, and they almost all failed, except for the last group of Wolverines who, alongside the Exiles, were finally able to bring him down. Eventually. Number 7. Ultimate Scarlet Witch. The Scarlet Witch from the Ultimate Comics universe of Earth 1610 could teleport, fly, and create far more powerful disruptions with her powers thanks to her actual mutant ability of probability manipulation, which required her to do the math to assess the probability of an effect she wanted to make happen, which is such a nerdy but cool way to see her power. She was a more considered and patient Scarlet Witch, and she never lashed out in the same way the Earth 616 one did. And she even helped lead the Brotherhood of Mutants for a while, all the while keeping in touch with Charles Xavier to promote a more peaceful mutant-human integration, which is really nice. She did also have magical abilities which she inherited from her mother, the Witch of Wundagore, Magda. Wanda didn't really have control of her magical abilities though, which was obvious since she unintentionally used them to bend time and space to summon dinosaurs to the Savage Land. That sentence alone is pretty still cool though, so yeah. Number 6. Age of Apocalypse Wanda. The original Scarlet Witch in the dark dystopian timeline of Age of Apocalypse died, but she was cloned by human scientists later on after the mutants had kind of become the leading force in the world. She was resurrected specifically to redo her most devastating act from Earth 616. You know, the one where she erased almost all mutant powers? And she really got close to doing it too. It honestly seems like she was more powerful than the regular Scarlet Witch, considering she had just been cloned and already had access to the same level of power she had when she was going to get rid of mutant powers. And she was a conduit for the life force at that time, so yeah, that's kind of insane. But unfortunately for the Humies, the effect of the No More Mutants spell had a range of about 12 feet. Or so. And after she used the spell, she fell down lifeless, so ha! Joke's on you, humans. Number 5. Silver Witch. The Silver Witch is one of the most powerful variants of the Scarlet Witch thanks to combining her tremendous magical ability with the power of her brother Quicksilver. The Silver Witch is one of the fastest superheroes in Marvel Comics, and she hails from the Earth TRN 852, or the 2021 Heroes Reborn universe, where the Avengers never formed, meaning her and her brother never reformed, and they joined some mutants protesting a bill that would force mutant registration, which led directly to the fight where Wanda absorbed and bonded Pietro's power with her own after he passed away fighting Blur, one of the members of the Squadron Supreme who replaced the Avengers. She was crazy powerful, but was also still pretty mentally disturbed. She could fire hexes at about 1,000 miles per hour, and she could fire 1,000 hexes a minute, which is just an insane thought. She removed part of Blur's soul and banished him to the Dread Dimension. She was eventually imprisoned in the Ravencroft Institute, but the speed of Quicksilver mixed with the magically chaos magic of Scarlet Witch, good lord. She also looked positively dashing, but you know. Number 4. Weapon Hex. Warp World. To really oversimplify it and cut out a lot of the details, there was a time in the story known as Infinity Wars where Gamora, wielding the Infinity Gauntlet, folded reality in half, merging souls together and creating a new reality known as Warp World. Some really cool characters came from this, including Laura Kinney as Weapon Hex. This character is an amalgamation of X-23 and Scarlet Witch. In this world, she was the 22nd attempt to create a vessel for the Dark Eldritch Demon, give me a sec, Mephistophelion. Nope, Mephistophelion. I got it, Mephistophelion. Who is a combo of Mephisto and Chthon, and who has an absolutely evil name that I hate with every inch of my soul. Why would you do this to me? Sarah Kinney, though, was impregnated with a mutant girl, combining the evolutionary's best enhancements and enchantments. She had a regenerative healing factor, retractable bone claws, chaos magic, including Scarlet Witch's hexes and magical abilities, plus necromancy. She was pretty crazy powerful and super cool, and she was a part of Warp World's Defenders. Number 3. MCU Scarlet Witch. I've said it before, but the MCU nerfs the heck out of most of Marvel's characters. It's upsetting to me, but at the same time, I guess I get it. Having said that though, I think the MCU Scarlet Witch is actually a pretty heavy hitter in comparison to other alternate versions of herself. She handicaps the whole of the Avengers team, sending Hulk into a rampage in Age of Ultron. She sends Vision hundreds of meters deep into the ground in Civil War. She almost completely defeats Thanos by herself in the battle in Endgame. And in WandaVision, she warps reality of an entire town and magically creates her own children. Now, I'm gonna spoil some things about the new Doctor Strange, so you have about 5 seconds to skip to the next point starting now. Alright, if you've seen this movie, you know she is crazy as hell. She's in possession of the Darkhold and is using it to try and basically steal the children of another alternate Wanda. To do this, she uses demons and creatures from other realities trying to capture America Chavez and steal her power to hop through realities. She single-handedly and successfully assaults the Camartage, which was being defended by a literal army of magic users, including Wong and Doctor Strange. She brutally defeats a whole team of the Illuminati from another reality in moments, while inhabiting the body of that reality's Scarlet Witch, and she has Doctor Strange and America Chavez on the run for the whole frickin' movie. Oh, and she looks like Elizabeth Olsen, so that's a superpower all on its own. Number 2. House of M. When the Avengers were deciding how to deal with Scarlet Witch, her brother Quicksilver came to her and influenced her to alter reality to make everyone's desires come to be. Sort of. And to change reality so that she was safe and everything was hunky-dory. She created a whole new reality called the House of M that saw her and her family being the rulers of Earth with her father Magneto in charge. That alone is an insane feat. The reality wasn't completely perfect though. Other than a few heroes having some problems and humans being hunted down by mutants, a few characters, namely Wolverine, could sense that something was up, and that this was not the way things were supposed to be. Once the Wolverine-led resistance unveiled the truth to everybody, Magneto, in a rage, used his powers to end Quicksilver's life in a pretty brutal and intense few comic panels. This broke Wanda even more than she already was, and it caused her to say one of her most famous lines: "No more mutants." This little sentence caused 986,618 of the mutant population of Earth to lose their powers completely. Coming in at number 1, it's the Scarlet Witch from the Disassembled event. Now, I know this is the 616 version of Scarlet Witch. That is technically a variation, and it's very easily the most powerful one. For me, a big part of what shows that, other than creating the House of M, a whole new reality, is the Avengers Disassembled event. Wanda and Wasp were just chilling by the pool when Wasp mentioned Wanda's kids. And the only problem is that the existence of her children had been wiped from her mind. And when Wasp brought it up, it brought all those memories back. And Wanda absolutely lost it. Several things happened next, with none of the Avengers even knowing the cause. For starters, Scott Lang Ant-Man was killed when a previously deceased Jack of Hearts showed up and detonated. While the heroes were trying to figure out what just happened, Vision showed up saying that he was not in control of himself and that he is sorry, as he also began to detonate. Then Jennifer Walters' She-Hulk began to get uncharacteristically raged and tore Vision in half. Next, we see Tony at a UN conference randomly start to act as though he was incredibly drunk even though he hadn't had a drink, and he verbally accosted the Latvian ambassador and threatened him. Then, a whole invasion of the Kree just randomly came out of nowhere, resulting in the passing of Hawkeye, and then the Kree just randomly left as quickly as they showed up. All of that was Wanda Maximoff using her magic. It almost led to the superhero community deciding to put Wanda into the afterlife, and led to her creating the House of M reality. Number 10. X-Men 1602. You know I gotta talk about this Neil Gaiman and Marvel collaboration yet again. One of the central conflicts within Marvel's 1602 story is the subject of witch breed, in other words, mutants. This story takes the adversity that the regular X-Men face in modern times and amplifies it to about 10, having the mutants be the main victims of this timeline's Spanish Inquisition. Mutants are hunted down and treated in the most horrible medieval ways. Standing against this horrible treatment were a version of the X-Men led by Carlos Javier, or this Earth's King Charles I, who refers to them as Mutantur, or Changing Ones. The team was made up of Warner, aka the Angel, Henry Hal McCoy, brother Petros and sister Wanda, Scotius Summerisle, Roberto Trefusis, and the wee apprentice John Grey. Now, this may be a basic team of X-Men, but all of these characters are very powerful in their own right, and in an Elizabethan world that can barely even comprehend them, with limited technology to even oppose them, they're even more powerful in retrospective.
Number 9. Giant Size Little, or Earth 71912. Formerly known editorially as the X-Babies, the X-Men of Earth 71912 are an alternate multiversal version of the X-Men as created by Scotty Young and Guri Hiru. Young's take on the Marvel Universe generally sees famous teams reinvented as little kids, like in his original take on Avengers vs. X-Men, where baby teams of Avengers and X-Men fight one another over a teddy bear named Bucky Bear. While they were once babies, this X-Men team has seemingly grown up a little bit at least, appearing as young children now. We also see this version of the X-Men and various mutant heroes and villains appearing in the Infinity comic written by Scotty Young, Giant-Sized Little Marvels, with art by Dax Gordine. While this team is technically just kids, that doesn't mean they aren't capable of making powerful moves. It just means that their world is governed by more kid-like and kid-friendly rules and confines. However, I have no doubt that the giant-sized little X-Men could still kick butt in other universes as well, should they need to. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list, please head on over to Facebook, where you can also show us some love by clicking that like and clicking that follow and all of the Facebook stuff.
Number 8. X-Men 2099. As the fourth incarnation of the X-Men in this universe, with basically no connection to classic characters or plot threads other than being inspired by the ideas of Charles Xavier, the nature of the 2099 X-Men team created by John Francis Moore and Ron Lim, first appearing in X-Men 2099 #1 in August of 1993, makes them one of the most creative and interesting versions of the team ever. The team comes together at the end of the 21st century, led by Desert Ghost, who has the ability to break down molecular structure with his left hand and heal even lost limbs with his right hand. He had a vision for a new future for mutant kind, and his team is made up of completely new characters like Cerebra, who has the abilities of Cerebro basically, and the ability to manipulate a person's nervous system, or Skullfire, who had ambient energy particle absorption. All the members of this X-Men team have unique powers to take on the grim corporate rule future of this timeline.
Number 7. Marauders. Marauders has to be one of my favorite X teams we've had in a long time. They weren't always so amazing and heroic though. The Marauders was initially a name taken by Mr. Sinister's band of mutants, who were pretty evil. The same mutants behind the Mutant Massacre, where many Morlocks were killed, and Angel, one of the original X-Men, got properly messed up. Poor Angel. Recently though, the Marauders' name was reclaimed by Kitty Pryde, now known as Captain Kate Pryde, the Hellfire Trading Company's Red Queen. Kate leads her Marauders team in an effort to fight mutant injustices the world over. Where there are mutants who are being kept from Krakoa or oppressed, her and the Marauders fight to free them. They also operate in trades, making deliveries the world over to ensure Krakoan-based goods and products like medicine and whiskey are delivered to Krakoa's trade partners.
Number 6. Asgardian X-Men. In What If number 12 from 1990, we get a little taste of what would happen if the X-Men had stayed in Asgard after their adventure during the Asgardian Wars in X-Men Annual number 9. Cyclops puts the X-Men to a vote, with the winning majority deciding whether to stay in or leave Asgard. Now Loki sent the losing majority home to Earth while allowing the winning majority to stay in Asgard. The result is an Asgardian X-Men squad that disperses among the Asgardian society, and it is so cool. Nightcrawler becomes a member of the New Warriors 3, or I guess 4. Sunspot becomes an Asgardian warrior, Danny Moonstar becomes a member of the Valkyrie, Ilyana Rasputin becomes the Enchantress, and above all of that and more, Storm becomes the goddess of thunder, with a version of Mjolnir becoming one of the most powerful versions of Thor in the comics ever. The X-Men becoming gods of Asgard with all the support of the already existing gods? Helheim, yes. Sorry, that's a bad joke, sorry.
Number 5. Age of Apocalypse. In the alternate reality of Earth 295, known as the Age of Apocalypse, the X-Men were one of the final superhero teams standing against the villainous tyrant known as Apocalypse. Of course, because it's his age. In this reality, many other superhero teams were wiped out, and Magneto became the leader of the X-Men in Charles Xavier's stead after Professor X was killed when Legion traveled back in time and attempted to end Magneto. Charles put himself in the way of the kill shot, thereby dying and erasing Legion from existence, while also creating the Age of Apocalypse reality, where Apocalypse attacked Earth years earlier than in the main timeline. While Magneto's X-Men roster from this reality would change over time, the original roster consisted of Iceman, Storm, Colossus, Jean Grey, Quicksilver, and Scarlet Witch, of course. Really the only X-Men team the once mutant children of Magneto have ever been on. Later on, the team would be joined by AOA Wolverine, known as Weapon X, and Rogue, who would later also become Magneto's lover and eventually wife in this reality.
Number 4. Excalibur. Excalibur first appeared in Excalibur Special Edition number 1 by the legendary Chris Claremont and Alan Davis in December of 1987. They are a government-sponsored team of extraordinary mutants who fight for the people of jolly old England and their interests around the globe. The team is usually formed by British heroes and former members of the X-Men and was originally assembled with hopes to carry on Charles Xavier's dream and legacy, but their adventures usually deal with magical and interdimensional crises linked to the pocket dimension of Otherworld. The team right now is made up of Captain Britain Betsy Braddock and formerly Captain Britain Brian Braddock, Nightcrawler, Shadowcat, Phoenix, Magan, Captain Avalon, Gambit, Gloriana, Jubilee, Richter, and Shatterstar. But the team has included awesome heroes like Black Knight, Colossus, Dazzler, Juggernaut, Lockheed, Moira McTaggart, Rogue, and Sage, and was reformed under Apocalypse as a mutant diplomatic organization in Krakoa, the UK, and in Otherworld. One of the best X-Men adjacent team variations ever, in my humble opinion.
Number 3. X-Force. In principle, X-Force should be one of the most powerful teams out there because they usually aim to kill. But there are some other teams on here that are known for having simply more Omega level mutants on their most powerful rosters, which is why I hesitated to put X-Force too close to the top, although they're pretty up there still. X-Force initially, though, started as Cable's team, who himself is known for being on the verge of Omega level, possibly the techno-organic virus being one of the main things holding him back from that status. The X-Force was originally Cable's Black Ops team, used for taking out those he deemed threats to the timeline, but would later become more known as Wolverine's team, and at one point was also Sabretooth's team. Currently in the comics, X-Force is actually more thought of as Beast, aka Hank McCoy's team, although Wolverine is still a major player on it. There was a recent incarnation of the team that included Omega level telepath Jean Grey on its roster as well.
Number 2. Multiversal X-Men. Gonna be honest here, this one's a little wacky. As an example, at one point the Kurt Wagoner on the team used a collection of hundreds of disembodied Professor Xavier heads to search the multiverse for a habitable planet for the population of Earth 12245. And then he teleported them all to that new world. That alone puts the team high on the list, but the other members just bring the team comfortably to the number 2 spot. A Wolverine that was Governor General of Dominion of Canada, who was in a romantic heroic duo with the demigod Hercules, who gave Wolverine adamantine bones, and who was also on the team. Emmeline Frost Summers, who was granted the immortality of a goddess. Catherine Pride, who goes by Shadow and is as equally powered as her 616 self. A genius disembodied head of Xavier, that's by itself. Corporal Scott Summers, who fought in and ended the American Civil War in 2 weeks, having dispatched about 6,000 Confederate soldiers, and regular old Dazzler. They came together thanks to the villain Savior, but fought against 10 evil Xaviers, including a Witch King and Cthulhu Xavier, that were trying to destroy reality.
Number 1. The Five. The Five have to be one of the most powerful mutant teams to have ever existed at this point in the main continuity, or if not, they would still have to be pretty high up there, I'd think. The Five are an offshoot mutant team whose job it is to make sure that all mutants are brought back to life. They were brought together to bring back all mutants who had ever passed on previous to the present time and age of the X-Men. Their ranks include multiple Omega level mutants, and they have literally mastered control over one of the most powerful governing principles of the cosmos, that of life and death. I know, it's pretty crazy. Their ranks include Hope Summers, Elixir, Proteus, Egg, and Tempest.